David Pakman just uploaded a new video yesterday called Crisis, YouTube Just Cut Us, in which he goes on to discuss something that has kind of been an open secret within progressive media, alternative media, and especially YouTuber circles for the last year now. You see, there's a massive stigma against creators complaining about their performance on YouTube, regardless of whether or not it's, just whining and being entitled, or if there's genuinely, factually, statistically a data-backed anomaly happening with the algorithms behind the scenes that overnight results in the entire landscape of the platform changing for your presence instantly. Unfortunately, it's heavily stigmatized to talk about this, no matter which scenario it is, which has made it very difficult for creators on the left to talk about this and tell their audiences that this is happening. Right-wing creators have also been very on top of attacking progressives who dare to talk about this as well. It's like, no. You all know this is happening. We all know this is happening, but you're not allowed to talk about it. YouTube has been blatantly suppressing, whether intentionally or unintentionally through tweaks in their algorithm, progressive content. It's happened to me, and crazily, not as severely as it's happened to some other creators. Now, David Pakman, after about a year of dealing with it, has decided to speak out and make a video on the subject. There have been other creators who have made similar videos. I don't necessarily agree with his idea that this is specifically a left-wing targeting thing. I definitely think it's plausible. I think it's more likely that this is a platforms adjusting their algorithms to push content that is as clickbaity and as rage baity and insane as possible. And the left just naturally doesn't make content that does well under those circumstances, while the right does make content that does well. So it gives the perception that the left is being suppressed while the right is being boosted, when in reality it's just the things the left and right do differently are the deciding factor in who's coming out on top with these algorithm changes. And I believe this because there are countless other channels across YouTube, well outside of the genre of politics, that have experienced the same issue within the same time period that all of this has been going on. So let's get into it, shall we?
I'm coming to you today because
Deepak.
independent media is facing a real crisis on YouTube. And I want to know what you believe is actually going on. Let me explain. Couple possibilities, and I will lay them out and you tell me what's going on. Left-wing independent media on YouTube is crashing. Since the beginning of April, YouTube has dramatically reduced performance.
My videos have actually been doing better lately, but it's very hit or miss week by week, to be fair. You know, one week you have a really good week, next week it's like your worst week, and then next week it's like a good week again, and it's like, how does this make statistical sense? Like how does this work on a logical level?
For the vast majority of left-leaning independent media shows, not every single one, but the vast majority. Importantly, this is not following the same trajectory as right-wing content. And to be clear, it is not every left-wing channel, but it is ours, and it is a lot.
I don't know. I think he's wrong here, because the channels on the right that are suffering are the ones that don't do what most right-wing channels do that are succeeding. So, for example, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire are struggling like crazy right now, and there are organic reasons for that among their own fan base, but it's also, I think it's a large part because, say what you want about the Daily Wire, they're not as low as your average right-wing chud slop creator. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like clickbaiting and rage baiting that hard. They're not like jumping on trends regardless of how little staying power they're going to have or how unimportant they are that hard. And so it seems as though, because they're not catching up with the times with these algorithm changes, they are also suffering despite being a right-wing channel. So I don't really think it's a right-left bias thing here.
A lot of them. Farron Cousins put out a video about this a few hours ago.
Could be.
The short version is this. Videos that should perform well, videos people write to me about saying, this is really important. Videos that do really well on other platforms are bombing. They're not reaching people. Every single day, I get comments from viewers about how they don't see videos of mine in their feed anymore. I had to manually go to your channel. David, what's the point of subscribing if YouTube never shows me your videos?
This is true and has been happening across all genres on YouTube since August, where impressions have been like just noticeably lower on all content uploaded by most creators ever since August. I think it was August 13th last year. Just ever since then, all impressions have been lower for creators, meaning like your content is getting shown to less people and thus naturally gets less views in the long run, which is a really weird change. But it's not just conservative content or like left-wing content though. But I will say I've also gotten a lot of comments like that since then. I've gotten a lot of comments from people saying, I never get your videos in my recommended anymore, or, oh, I thought you quit YouTube. I'm glad to see that you're still uploading. Like, oh, I haven't seen your stuff in my feed in forever, you know? And that tells me, you know, a lot of people saying they've had to resubscribe after YouTube auto unsubbed them. YouTube does do that. It's confirmed now, by the way. If you go long enough without watching a creator, YouTube will unsubscribe you. Lots of different things like that. You know, it's just YouTube's fucky. You know, Google's fucky. I think it has a lot more to do with AI being used as a crutch for everything now in the back end than anything, though.
So we started looking at the data. I want to go data first, and there's a couple important metrics that we found. One is impressions. An impression is YouTube shows you my thumbnail and title. You might be watching one video and on the side it goes, hey, you might like this. That's an impression. You might click it or you might not click it. Maybe it's an up next, maybe it's on the homepage. The second metric we look at is called click-through rate. And that simply means if 100 people are shown that they could click on my video, how many do? If 5 out of 100 click it, that's a 5% click-through rate. If 20 out of 100 click it, that's a 20% click-through rate.
Everything he's about to say is absolute nonsense, like just like absolute gobbledygook. If you're not a YouTuber, you will not understand any of it. It'll make no sense to you and you probably won't care. So to translate and simplify and TLDR for you guys, the numbers don't add up. Like, for people who've done YouTube for like a decade plus, such as David Pakman, you become very familiar with what the numbers should look like for when a video is going to do well, or really good, or really bad. And because you know what those numbers look like, you can actually use them to find what you're doing wrong in your content to constantly improve. But ever since these changes happened, the numbers stopped adding up and they stop correlating with anything that you can actually do to improve your content. Editing, lots of these creators have tried editing changes to speed up their videos and up their retention. Upping retention doesn't work. Crazier, better, clickbaitier thumbnails that up click-through rate doesn't work either. It seems like it's an arbitrary decision as to how many impressions you get dished out. And because your other stats will be so high or so low despite how many impressions YouTube decides to give your video, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. There used to be a blatant and very clear correlation. Now said correlation is gone.
Now, YouTube has suggested to me that there is simply less interest right now in the sort of content that the left is putting out. Maybe people are fatigued. Maybe they're burnt out on politics. Maybe fewer people care about these stories.
That's definitely true. Like that is definitely objectively absolutely true. A lot of left-wing people who watch like progressive content have absolutely checked out and blackpilled and stopped watching, unsubscribed from like progressive left-leaning channels and stuff. And a lot of them have like written about it on their social medias and online. I've gotten comments about it. Like it hurts their mental health too much. So yeah, there is an organic fall off that progressive creators have seen since Trump won. Like, David Pakman made a video about it. He lost like tens of thousands of subs the night that Trump won the election in 2024. So like, yeah, there was definitely an almost like, if we can't punish the right, we'll punish the people who made us have hope that we could beat the right kind of mindset almost. And then you also have the people who are just so tired of all the bad news. They can't do it anymore. So they're just taking a break, or maybe they're retired from politics. Sad to say, but you know, the left is made up of people who have a limit. They have a limit. And that's one of the left's biggest weaknesses, is that the people on it are normal, decent human beings who have a limit.
If that were true, you would expect the click-through rate to fall. In other words, if when people are interested, 20 out of 100 click my videos when they are shown them. If people are...
Also, COVID. There's also been an organic fall off in all online activity due to COVID and the lockdowns, like, really coming to an end. Like, it's not just the lockdowns and COVID has been not over, but, you know, really on the back burner for a while now. But people have really had the time to adjust to the world being open again, you know? Like, everything being so locked down like it was in America for like over a year, you know, during COVID, really like changed the way people lived their lives and made people move a lot of their existence onto the internet. And I feel like over the last couple years, there's been a very strong effort culturally, unanimously, to undo that damage that the pandemic caused. And I think now we're seeing a sort of correction back to normal from that. But there is definitely something weird happening as well behind the scenes. Mr. Veggie, thank you for the $2. As I realize work is slavery, that is all. Well, thank you for the $2. I appreciate that. Anyone else realizing work is just slavery? Well, I mean, you get paid for it, so it's technically not slavery. But I guess if you don't work and don't get paid, then you end up like homeless and dead. So I guess that's kind of like being whipped into having to work, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, you still get paid, all right? If you can still buy the big five, you're not enslaved, okay? Well, let's be fair, okay? At least you're not chattel, all right? If you can still buy a PlayStation 5, you are not chattel. I think that's a fair standard.
Less interested, maybe only 5 out of 100 click. But all year, the click-through rate has stayed the same. The click-through rate hasn't gone down at all. When people are shown, here's a video from David, they are clicking it just as often as at the beginning of the year. And January, February, March, a period during which the channel was growing massively, we were getting 15 million impressions a day. And the click-through rate was close to 8%. And then April and May, click-through rate is still close to 8%. But impressions go from 15 million down to 10 million. But the click-through rate...
That's still so many impressions, though, but I get why he's upset. You know, it never feels good to fall from a point, no matter how high that point is, and how high the point that you fall to is. It's hard to appreciate when you've been so much higher, right? So I totally get where he's coming from. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely unusual, especially with the fact that we've got midterms coming up. Like, don't get me wrong, there are organic reasons why it would make sense that over the last 2 years, there's been a bit of a slump for progressive content. Coming into the end of this year, if things continue to go more on the downward end, there's definitely something fishy going on. Like, that would be when I make my sort of decision on what I think of this situation. Because organically speaking, when the midterms come around, and especially when the next election hits, there should be a massive spike in interest in progressive political content. And if that doesn't come about, then there's definitely something fishy going on, for sure.
Is almost identical. So it appears that people are just as interested in hearing from the left on YouTube right now, but they are not being shown the videos. Now, if this were the entire story, I probably wouldn't even make this segment. But what makes this very difficult to ignore are the sheer number of people every single day who say things like the following. I don't get you in my feed at all. We're showing screenshots of people leaving these comments. I don't get you.
I'm curious, if you get this video in your feed, do you like comment down below? Do you get this video, or do you get my videos in your feed? Do you get my videos recommended to you, or do you have to specifically seek out the subscribed box to see what your what channels you subscribe to have uploaded recently, and then like scroll till you see my newest video? I'm curious what the consensus is, because it seems as though YouTube's like made it a lot more strict how frequently a viewer has to watch your content for your new content to end up on their homepage. Like I theorize at least that if you miss 3 of a creator's videos, like if a creator uploads 3 times and you don't click and watch their videos when it pops up in your recommended, that channel stops being recommended to you, full stop. Like full stop, they no longer recommend you that channel. Even if you're subscribed. If you click and watch a video of theirs, it might come back into your algorithm, but if you go long enough forgetting that you were ever subbed to them, then YouTube unsubscribes you. That's how I understand it to work.
In my feed at all. Pac-Man not on my feed anymore for some reason. I had to search for his videos. You are being suppressed in distribution. I'm not seeing your new videos, and I've been subscribed for years. I have hit the bell to make sure I get informed. And another one, Robin says, this is the first time I've seen a post of yours in weeks. You know, at a certain point, when you hear from hundreds and hundreds of people every single day saying, I've been subscribed, I don't see any of your content, you have to start wondering, is something going on here? Now, I want to be charitable to YouTube here. We've been on YouTube a long time. I think the people at YouTube are generally people trying to do a good job, and YouTube has offered a different explanation. And the argument from YouTube is click-through rate is deceptive. You know, during periods of explosive growth, when YouTube pushes your videos to more people, click-through rate tends to come down. It actually doesn't really mean anything. That click-through rate, they have this whole other explanation. However,
this is technically true. Like when a video starts getting flooded with impressions, the click-through rate can plummet really low, even down to like less than 1%, you know, but that's only because the video is getting millions of impressions and let's say only a few 100,000 people click and watch. Now that's a lot of people, but that's still a very small percentage of the people that were shown the video. You know, let's say it's 100 million people or 100 million impressions. It's not unusual for a big viral video that has like a few 100,000 views, right? And so you can have a really, really low CTR on a really high view video. That happens. But the reason why it got all those views was because it got all those impressions. And the reason it got all those impressions would have been two reasons. The first being that when the video first came out in its first testing phase, let's say the first hour, the first day or so, the video had a high click-through rate among the first test audience it was sent out to, like a really abnormally high click-through rate it would have to have. Like, I don't know, 11% is pretty good. And, you know, the average watch time would have to be pretty good, you know, well over 50%. If that is the case, then it will get flooded with impressions regardless of how much the metrics slow down. The metrics are expected to slow down, but if early performance is really good, then it'll push it to everybody that it thinks is interested. That's how I think it works.
However, one of the things that makes me question that is that the content is killing on every other platform. If it were true that people are less interested in left-wing political content right now, you would imagine that we would be getting fewer views on TikTok. We would be getting fewer views on Snapchat. We would be getting fewer views on Instagram and Facebook, and the audio podcast would have declined. But every single other platform is doing fine. It's only YouTube, which to me undercuts the idea that there is less interest. Now, I am not arguing that someone at YouTube has flipped a switch and is deliberately suppressing left-wing channels. I believe that YouTube's systems are reacting in some sense to what they believe is going to keep people on platform more, and this is sort of a side effect of it.
Okay.
Either way.
All right, so he's not necessarily claiming that there is a deliberate anti-left bias. He's claiming essentially the same thing I think's happening, which is the algorithms have changed, and it is now encouraging far more, you know, it's angry, like content that gets people angry, content that gets people like engaged in a way that is arguably toxic and unhealthy, or at least toxicity and unhealthy content is a easier way to reach the standards the algorithm needs you to meet to, you know, have it reach a wide audience. It might just be that YouTube has accidentally pushed the line just a little too far, and now unless you're really rage baiting or clickbaiting, you can't get the numbers you used to. And you know, there's very few creators in the left that stoop that low. So of course everybody would be seeing a pretty general drop off. So he seems to agree with my theory.
The effect is the same, which is that this is an existential crisis for left-wing YouTube channels. So independent media survives or dies based on discoverability.
I mean, for full-time progressive content, I mean, I had to stop making content as much because I had to get a side hustle, you know, but you gotta keep the bills paid, you know how it is. But yeah, like YouTube absolutely started to suppress the channel a lot, and I had to get a side job. And, you know, I'm still able to make content, but it's not as much as I used to be able to make. It's not as consistently as I used to be able to make it, and I do apologize for that, but you know how it is, you know? It's like progressive content is never paid. Like Hassan is the one super rich guy, and everybody else is like kind of getting by, you know what I mean? So that, you know, it doesn't pay to not be evil. Remember that.
So if you actually want to keep seeing the show, There is something very important that you should do right now. First of all, make sure to like this video on YouTube. If you're listening elsewhere, go to YouTube, like this video. But the concept is, we don't want to rely on AI for recommendations. We don't want to rely on the algorithms. We have to go back to telling the platforms what we want. YouTube defaults users to what they call personalized notifications, which essentially means let AI choose whether to show me David's video.
You got a side hustle despite the Xanax going homeless people. I do think it speaks volumes that the biggest criticism my haters have of me is that I'm broke. like he's broke and irrelevant and we want to be homeless. It's like, all right. I mean, if that's the narrative you want to run with, it's just going to make you sound kind of insane, but all right.
Videos. You have to tell YouTube that you want to see certain videos. So if you're not yet subscribed on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and like this video. But after doing that, double check that notifications are actually turned on. There's a bell icon. Click it, tap it, and select all. There is a very good chance that YouTube has set this to personalized, meaning they're not going to show you the videos. You've got to go in and tell YouTube what to do.
Even if you select all, they still probably won't show you the videos.
This is our best and only shot at reprogramming the algorithm, but also at circumventing it and simply telling YouTube, don't decide for me. I'm deciding the content I want. Also important, because we have no control over these platforms, make sure you're on my Substack mailing list, because we do own the data there. We have no way to contact our 3.6 million YouTube subscribers if YouTube pulls the plug.
That's the craziest part of it to me. Like, when you really think about it, it's like over 100,000 people have clicked the subscribe button. Imagine this, okay? Imagine this, chat. On some social media site, you've got 100,000 followers and you're friends with them and you DM with them, right? You know how, like, if you post on Twitter, you know, maybe you get 10 likes from your followers because it doesn't get seen, it gets seen by some of them, it ends up in some of their algorithms, right? Maybe you get like 1,000 likes from your followers because it gets seen like by all of them, right? Maybe the numbers are less in your scenario, but you get what I'm talking about. Imagine if instead of it being posts, if when you tried to DM your friends, like direct message one of your friends, you had to ensure that your message was interesting enough to actually make it into their inbox. Imagine if the standard for an interesting enough message to end up in your friend's inbox, your 100,000 friends' inbox, got raised and you just can't meet that bar because you don't even know what the bar is, like what the standard is. And so now you've got over 100,000 people who are wondering where you are, if you're even alive, and many of them are slowly forgetting about you because you've not, you know, come into their peripheral in any time recent. That is kind of what it feels like to be at the whim of YouTube's algorithm. That, like, no matter what, you can't really guarantee or even kind of like try to guarantee that you will be able to reach the people, the actual human beings who hit a button that said, I want to know, I want to be alerted when this guy has something to say. YouTube used to be like that, where, you know, YouTube told you when the guy you liked said something you wanted to hear them say. Now it's gotten a lot more, we decide.
We own our list on Substack. So go to davidpakman.com/Substack and make sure you're on that list. But the most important thing, like this video, subscribe, bell, all, and I'll report back to you in 2 days and see if we can turn this thing around. You know,
I'm curious to see his follow-up video, you know? Maybe we'll cover it if you guys are interested in this one. We'll have to find out, you know. I do appreciate if you guys drop some some support on this video, you know, comments, likes, all that good stuff, since you know, I do want this one to try and reach as many people within specifically my subscriber base as possible. Like, this one's not really a video intended for like new audience or people outside of the audience. I more so want to make sure that like the subscribers see this one. So if you could drop a sub, or not drop a sub, drop a like and a comment, that does really help a lot and I appreciate it. But yeah, I am definitely worried about the future of progressive content online, and if you wonder why, it's because look at how we got to where we are right now as a country. From Russia using the internet to propagandize to people, pro-Trump propaganda, to the Trump campaign weaponizing memes and having Elon Musk buy Twitter so that they could push constant propaganda onto people's social media feeds, to Trump forcing big tech CEOs to bend the knee to him and change their algorithms and TOS to align with what he, with his ideas and his beliefs, it is clear that the internet and internet influencers and what side they fall on politically is really, really important to modern politics. And what we're seeing right now is a big setback to the left catching up with the right. We can only hope that it is possible that in the end of all this, the left can catch up, because it really, really needs to.